Hello? Yeah, it works. Hello, everyone. Welcome here at the Independent School for the City for our 7th anniversary. My name is Mike Emmerich, director of the school. Super happy to see you all. To begin with, a little apology for the elevator not working, but you all made it. And also, there's not enough chairs for everyone. There's still a bit of space here, but otherwise people will have to stand, unfortunately. Super nice that you're all here. Our school party, we will first have, I will give a short introduction, then we will have a talk by Sam Jacob, who will be further introduced by my colleague Wouter van Stiphout here. Afterwards, after the talk, we will continue with the party, let's say. We'll have a punk band, De Jeugd, who will play for 15, 20 minutes. And afterwards, there will be DJs, drinks, and I hope you'll all have a good time. But before we start with the lecture, I wanted to explain you a little bit about the school. And I thought it was nice to, since we're 7 years old now, I thought it was time also to look back a little bit at what we've done and what we have learned over the past 7 years and the people that we met along the way. And I think a lot of them are in the audience tonight as well, both tutors and participants in our activities. So just a really brief overview. I'll be quick. We started with the school in 2018. This is pictures of the opening party where everybody still looked younger than today. And we started the school with the idea to have a place for reflection, a place where people could come together to learn, where different disciplines that work on the city come together, meet inspiring people, and in doing so, also finding answers or ways to deal with bigger challenges that our cities and landscapes are facing at this time. Since the beginning, we always did two different things. So on the one hand, we have like school parts, which is workshops, studios with smaller groups of people, like 12, 15 people that we really dive into a topic for a couple of days. And we always want to be a hangout, a place where people can come together, get inspired by a lecture, and also discuss like the bigger challenges in the city. We did a whole range of activities. So we explored super diversity and urban culture together with first with Arnold Rijndorp, later with Neeltje van Westenend, with Violet Schoenberger, with Tim Peters, with Teun van de Ende. We did a lot of visits into the port of Rotterdam, mainly with Dirk Sijmons and with Herman Kosman, looking at the invisible fossil economy that Rotterdam is actually thriving on, but also the port as a spider in a logistic networks of global shipping, etc. We planted trees together with Peter Veenstra in the Hef Park in Rotterdam South, where we harvested seedlings and placed them, turning them into a microforest. We had already 7 film and architecture studios together with Jort den Hollander, who's somewhere over here as well, yeah, all the way in the back, where we used film as a way to look at the city, but also as a way to show ideas. We survived COVID. We did a couple of studios that had to do with financing and different alternative models of financing. We worked first together with Nanne de Rue of Powerhouse to kind of understand how to develop things. Later we did a workshop with Alfredo Brillenburg, with Piet Vollaert to look into alternatives of financing. We did a field club together with McGuffin magazine and Pleasant Place to the nurseries of Boskoop. And this is a whole list. So we made ramped earth bricks with BC architects, concrete planters with Maria Lisogorskaya of Assemble, a terrazzo platform with Studio Ossidiana, which is outside, by the way. Did urban tissue weaving and stitching with Bart Gorter and Ernst van der Hoeven. And a reconstructive pottery workshop with Sam Jacob. Yeah, we did. We developed measures against a smooth city and looked at public space as a place for protest with Loom, Practice for Cultural Transformation. We did various research by photography studios with Ruben Dario Kleimeer, with Charlie Koolhaas, with Maarten Laupman, with Florian Braakman. We looked at patterns in the city as inspiration to develop a new font type with Simone Troem and with Loes van Es of Team Thursday, who also made our amazing graphic style of the school. We partnered up with the Ukraine, the Netherlands Urban Network and Spatial Justice for Palestine to explore the reconstruction of destroyed cities. And last year we had our first international workshop for which we went to Cairo together with APE, Loom and Cluster. And furthermore, we had the luxury of welcoming over 55 speakers for our Schools Out evenings. You cannot read them, but it's a whole list. And we're now running our 8th edition of Back to School With, a research lecture series where we dive into a certain topic curated by someone. At this moment, we're running a studio or a Back to School With series together with Office Winhof about post-65 architecture. And then we had lots and lots of other events that I cannot mention, but for which I want to thank everyone that was involved, all the tutors, all the participants, all the organization that was there. And now, since a year, we've moved to this fantastic new location. We were before in next to Central Station. And this has also given us new energy and new collaborations with people, amongst which the Wijkpaleis, who also does our catering for all the events and which have prepared fantastic snacks here that are here for the evening. And maybe apart from looking back, I think it's also nice to mention a couple of things that we have planned ahead. So in May, we're planning a studio of 5 days, which is called To See the World in a Soybean, where we're going to look at what will happen if the Dutch landscape will not be a place for meat production anymore, but the Netherlands becomes completely vegan. And we do that together with Strootman Landscape Architects. In April, May, we're going to look at public space as a place for protest, together with Loom, Practice for Cultural Transformation. And in June, we will have another studio, which is called Lifehouse, and where we're going to look together with Stad in de Maak, City in the Making, for community-led property development. So with the community, they're planning to buy this building. And they're asking us, like, can you come up with strategies on what to do with it and how to make it work? Then we also have some Schools Out planned. So there will be, next month, we will have a Schools Out evening with Reinier de Graaf. It's every last Friday of the month. And in May, we will have Ellie Uiterbroek to talk about the Execututes project. Well, that's it already. We have a lot more other things coming up, but well, there's on the monitor here. There's also all the program passing by. So if you're interested, there's flyers also laying around. If you're interested, check it out. Before I'm going to give the floor to Wouter to introduce Sam, I would first like to take a moment also to thank Ewout Doorman and Susa Kimovic. Where's Susa? Well, they've done a tremendous work in, yeah, Susa. They have done a lot of work in preparation of this party, especially with the elevator being broken, bringing everything up. It was a real effort for them, so thanks a lot. Now, I would like to give the floor to Wouter, and then enjoy your evening.
Thank you. I'll keep it really short so we can move on to the headline of tonight very swiftly. This is the third time that Sam is talking at the school. The first time was in 2020. That was at another school party, and then 3 years later he talked about archaeology and gave a workshop about archaeology also. And now another, so every 3 years we have Sam. So now Sam is here talking about banana. The banana will be the subject of tonight. But Sam gave me some quotes to read about himself. Sam has been described as Spartan by Roger Scruton. Now, you may not know Roger Scruton, but Roger Scruton is a dead English philosopher who was also the professor of Thierry Baudet and was a kind of a super right-wing nativist philosopher who was very much interested in beauty in architecture and who called Sam's work Spartan. By contrast, Hermann Čech, who is a Viennese architect, has called Sam more advanced and more frivolous than Hans Hollein. But, on the other hand, we have Robert Venturi, who has called Sam a pervert and a degenerate, but who writes like Abraham Lincoln. And then there is the young novelist Nicola Barker, who has the most literary quote, which is, "Serious mischief makers like Sam Jacob are nothing more and nothing less than tenacious embryos pummeling away with their persistent elbows at the enveloping flesh of the womb of meaning." Well, what else is there to say? For those who do not know Sam, Sam is an architect based in London. He has been the principal for the Office of FAT, Fashion Architecture Taste, for 20 years, I think, until 2013. Since then, he has Sam Jacob Studio in London, which designs buildings, which designs exhibitions, installations, and always has somewhere in the world a William Morris exhibition going on. And Sam is, since last year, the Dean of the Institute for Architecture of the Akademie für angewandte Künste in Vienna. So I give you Sam Jacob.
Thank you, Walter. And it's so nice to be back and so nice to see your amazing new home. I love it. I'll take it. 45 minutes. Start. Now, that's the... Anyway, this is not really a talk. It's maybe a pitch for a job, for an exhibition. Maybe, I don't know, at the Guggenheim, New York, or V&A in London would kind of be okay, I think. Or maybe a huge empty warehouse in the port of Rotterdam, which might be very appropriate. For an exhibition that spans disciplines and formats, huge popular appeal, like it would sell a lot of tickets, with incredible merchandising opportunities. I suppose like talks usually happen at the end of a project. You know, when someone's done something, they're like, hey, look at what I did. Isn't it great? This is the opposite. This is the beginning of a project. It was a draft of something which probably will never happen. The Great Banana Show. Totally bananas, banana, 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 whatever it might be called. But the outline of this pitch goes something like this. From the bedroom to the greenhouse to the plantation, from wallpaper to Mauritius and back again, from the picturesque landscape and the artifice of nature to the Crystal Palace, and then the interiors of European royalty, to the food courts of American shopping malls, to outer space. We ride a horse with Arnold Schwarzenegger through the Hotel Bonaventure. We laugh at the erotic slapstick comedy. We eat bananas behind the Iron Curtain, cruise with Le Corbusier dressed as a bee. Use the networks of the banana as a cover for Cold War imperialism, smuggling, contraband, etc., etc. This is why I'm talking about the banana. Who was like, why are you talking about banana? Oh, yeah. Oh, and a few other people, actually. yeah. The banana, this is the end of this is what you should take away from this. So I could finish after this phrase. The banana becomes a way of thinking about interiors, climates, transport, empire, display, architecture, and fantasy. The premise, which is basically the premise of everything that I do, is that everything is connected, that what appear to be simple things quickly dissolve into very murky or very complex webs of, this thing related to that thing. In other words, a little bit like the world of a conspiracy theorist, where anything can lead to anything, where truths shatter into contradictory kind of shards, where any fact spirals out of control into an and or but or if or an also. It's all very conspiracy-like, apart from the fact that there isn't anything behind what we see. There's no secret power lurking behind anything. It's all out in the open. Anyway, I'm going to talk about that and the connections that, that we use the banana as this sort of a MacGuffin to take us through the kind of world of modernity, you could say. But it is a draft. If I get lost, please do join in and we can, workshop the issues or maybe iron a few things out. And there are rewards for active participation. Not only that, we went shopping. 1, 2, 3. Maybe I should like to run like a banana. Pass them around just to get into the vibe. If you get hungry, just shout out. I've got many more bananas here. But I'm going to start. Okay. And we're going to start in Chatsworth House, part the first. These are the first bananas that we're going to encounter. These bananas are on the walls of the Wellington bedroom at Chatsworth House in the north of England. And they're there as Chinese wallpaper, believed to have been, made in about 1790. And there's an image of the Asian banana that you see here. And it was, wallpapered around this very domestic or grand domestic space. As if the walls dissolve into plants or butterflies and fruits. So when you enter the kind of biological machinery of the English aristocracy, this is where you have to manufacture the next edition in the aristocratic bed, the solidity of the walls, the enclosure of the space evaporates, at least as an image, at least in the imagination. We'll come back to Chatsworth and bananas a little bit later on. So this was Chatsworth part 1. But first, just let's enjoy the coincidence that this wallpaper, a scenographic banana ecosystem, happens to be in the same place that this very banana, the Cavendish banana, kind of not quite originates from, but owes a lot to being kind of turned into a cultivated species. So the image of the banana was already there before the fact. Weird, huh? Another piece of wallpaper. So this is maybe one of the most successful large-scale scenic pieces of wallpaper produced in the 19th century. And it is basically a description of Captain Cook's Pacific voyage. And you see, 1, 2, 3, it's kind of chronological. And he meets all of these different people. They like, hey, Captain Cook, what a great guy. Everyone's happy to meet him. And in the center of it is the banana. You can see it there. So it's interesting that this is another kind of, colonial voyage, another kind of out there beyond the European world, which then gets kind of turned into a domestic thing, So the whole world gets flipped inside out. The exterior becomes the interior. There's the bananas. And here it is when it becomes an interior. So there's something weird happening there, something odd about interiority, which I think is occurring. And of course, the banana sits as a kind of symbol of all of this, to European eyes, exoticness and otherness. The actual spread of banana, this is a map showing the movement of different species of banana from Asia, coming west, then to the Americas, back again. So there is a real voyage of banana species around the world, which happens over different kinds of timescales. One of those timescales is this one, from Mauritius to the Peak District, Colonialism Part 2. Here we are in Mauritius. This is, I guess, an island that's already, by the time of the bananas involved, has already been shaped by extraction and slavery and plantation agriculture. First with the Dutch. Poor Dodo. You poor Dodo. I miss you, Dodo. Yeah, and in the background, yeah. And then the French, after the Dodo had gone, and then the English. And then so the English arrive. They have a battle with the French, and they take Mauritius, let's say. And they find the banana there, which had come somehow from China to Mauritius. And this guy, Charles Telfair, was a kind of navy officer, some kind of had some kind of colonial position, and loved plants alongside the kind of Anglican churches which were being built in Mauritius. Between the two, they collect species and start shipping them back to the UK. This was his kind of mini plantation. This was the condition very near where this place is. It's now a kind of wellness resort, like many apparatus of colonialism have found adaptive reuse kind of future lives. And the banana that Telfair sends back finds its way to Joseph Paxton in Chatsworth House, where he is a gardener. But it gets there through a device called the Wardian case. Interiority Part 2, Colonialism Part 3. And this is the Wardian case, which is a device which was apparently had to be invented, which allows the transportation of plants, on ships across, kind of vast distances and over time. Here's a book by Ward, the guy who invented it, on the conveyancing of plants and seeds on shipboard. And here's an account of how the banana was actually transported. I won't go into it now, Michelle. But this is the device, which I don't really understand how it worked. There seems to be some kind of box which you put a plant in. So I'm not sure what the incredible invention was, but apparently, and this is the way in which many tropical species arrive in Europe. I think this might be in Munich or Amsterdam or Paris, into botanical gardens, but also into the estates of the aristocracy. Wardian case, another kind of interior, another kind of miniature architecture, another kind of contained environment, another kind of very specific interior, which also has other uses, it turns out. Good for having plants in polluted cities. Especially useful here, the application of the closed plan in improving the condition of the poor. Handy, right? Miniature environments, interiority Part 3, artificial nature Part 1. So this was the guy, Nathaniel Ward. This was his fern greenhouse in Clapham in London. And this, became a thing, it became part of the kind of craze for having plants in your house, that plants become part of the interior. Fern fever, for example, and often using these devices, which are kind of small buildings, which you put inside your own building. Great Exhibition, Part 1. And you can see it here. Here's one of those terrarium-type structures in the Great Exhibition of 1851. Joseph Paxton will return, but not before we go to Chatsworth House again. Chatsworth House, this is it in the Elizabethan era. This is a cushion cover embroidered by Bess of Hardwick, better known for Hardwick Hall. She was the most powerful woman in England after Elizabeth I, and loved architecture. She was a great client. Chatsworth House, typical kind of country house with a huge landscape next to the Peak District, where you can see a kind of wildness in the top corner of the image. With, in this illustration, a very formal landscape, geometric, French, Dutch style. Here it is again. You can see it's kind of geometric quality, maybe better there. But at a certain point, it gets a makeover. So Capability Brown is invited to come to transform the landscape. And of course, Capability Brown is kind of peddling this new English style of the picturesque landscape. And so all of those formal, geometric shapes, octagons and straight lines get changed into something which looks very much like nature, but very much is not nature. So this is Chatsworth after the landscape is transformed. So you can see straight lines become serpentine lines, trees are in little clumps. Basically that becomes this. So what had looked very artificial suddenly looks natural, but in many ways is far more artificial. Some of Brown's drawings showing parts of the transformation, and some of the devices. So this was the device for moving trees around. So you take it out of shapes, use this device somehow, move trees around so you put them in this artfully natural arrangement. So from this idea of landscape to these. And this is Chatsworth itself after Brown. And the kind of things he was doing was moving trees around, but also building little eye catchers, so it looks like an ad hoc landscape. It looks like it has a particular kind of history, which is almost entirely fabricated. And creating these incredible vistas where you could be in your country house, look out across the landscape as if it all belonged to you. And most of it did, but not quite all of it. But it used devices like this, the ha-ha, which is interiority part 5. The ha-ha, as you maybe know, is this device which allows you to have a break, like security basically, without having something which looks like a fence. So you are the aristocrat, and here are the animals, aka the peasants, and they can't get in. The ha-ha is imported into landscape design from military technology, so it's used in kind of like early trench warfare, I suppose, spikes and whatever, to stop the attackers, to also stop those pesky villagers making it into your grounds, but still maintaining the seamless view, so that you end up with a situation like this for Mr. and Mrs. Andrews in a famous painting by Gainsborough. So this is a painting of a couple and the land, really. And you can see the foreground, and you can see the background, and it all seems like one seamless environment. I mean, the ha-ha still used. This is it being used in the construction of Victorian asylums, mental asylums. But equally in the American Embassy in London, it's exactly the same device. Chatsworth House Part 3, Joseph Paxton Part 2, Artificial Nature Part 3. I don't know if these numbers make any sense, quite frankly. Does anyone want a banana, by the way? How about a banana sweet? Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, we may as well eat them, right? Otherwise, these came all the way from London, by the way. By ship, yeah. This is Joseph Paxton, who is hired as the new head gardener after Brown at Chatsworth, and he introduces a whole load of kind of more engineered elements to the landscape, like the Emperor Fountain. It's like the biggest spurt of water in 19th century Europe. Arranges rocks into these incredibly kind of gigantic rockery gardens. A brass willow tree that sprays water. So all of these things are kind of, they're kind of natural but engineered at the same time. Not so dissimilar from these kinds of projects. This is David Green's famous log plug and rock plug. Things which look like nature but have technology inside them. You can plug your appliances into them and enjoy the landscape. So you can see some of the Paxton's sort of engineering works here. This is just the way that water moves around the landscape. Big things like this. This was for bringing coal into the estate, into the boilers, which would heat the greenhouses, which I'll show you in a second. The tunnel, which brought all that coal in. What he was kind of interested in himself, apart from this kind of beautifying of the landscape, was also the technology of the landscape to do with growing stuff. And this was his first greenhouse, which just sort of sits against an existing wall and steps up through the landscape. It's heated by pipes which come from the kitchens, so it changes the temperature within the greenhouse. this is the kind of technology which he goes on to develop in the lily house. Here's the guys outside the lily house, and this is what's inside it. Giant lilies, so big and so strong that you can put your daughter on it, and she's fine, apparently. So these kind of miniature environments with exotic, strange things in the north of England, things which come from like warmer parts of the world. So quite weird, quite odd, almost surreal way of stepping into different kinds of environments. And there were a whole series of different greenhouses, the biggest of which was the Great Conservatory. No longer with us, but a kind of feat of engineering which allowed all of this kind of interior world to exist within it. It's a beautiful drawing of it, just as a kind of spatial, volumetric thing. You know, his interest was really in the technology of it, the material, how you could build it with cast iron, with glass panels, and so on, and the worlds which were then created within it. He was really interested in supporting these plants. He was a plants guy. And here's his banana avenue, the Musea Avenue. Because one of the things which had arrived was this banana from Charles Telfair, which arrives at Chatsworth. Paxton records it. This is he did a magazine, a botanical magazine, and he made these really beautiful drawings of the plants in it. This is his drawing of the banana, which he begins to cultivate at Chatsworth and gives it the name, the Cavendish banana, after his employer, the Duke of Cavendish. Paxton's successes at Chatsworth give him a platform where he moves on to design the structure for the Great Exhibition of 1851. You can see his sketches here, and you can see a little bit of how it's being built. But what gets built is this gigantic, scary, modern structure, which, if you take a bit of the frills off it, looks like something you would find as Amazon might be using it, some kind of logistics center. But inside it is the collection of really, like, the whole world is kind of contained within it. Partly the whole world as owned by the British at that time, so a kind of colonial exhibition, but also also many other places. But you can see just the mind-boggling scale of what's going on, like giant trees from Canada, fountains, so many people, so many sculptures, so much stuff. I mean, really, really mind-boggling. Of course, a lot of colonial kind of exhibits, India, other kind of cultural moments, like an Alhambra court, which is designed by Owen Jones, who, while Paxton is cataloguing plants, is cataloguing patterns from around the world. You can see here, we've got Chinese, number 2, in his book, Grammar of Ornament. This one, Savage Tribes, number 1. But it's a kind of container of environments, you could say, as well as, obviously, it probably had its own atmospheric environment at the same time. And it's where a lot of encounters happened. One of the strange encounters, if this wasn't already a kind of sidetracked enough, this is another sidetrack. This is Zemper's drawing of his primitive version of the primitive hut, which was a hut from Port of Spain in Trinidad, which was part of the display. You can see here with the Trinidad section. But this is where he finds the hut. So it's a kind of weird historical, I don't know, moment where something which becomes very important in the history of architecture is actually a simulation in the first place. So it's kind of, I don't know, that's kind of weird. So what you're encountering is an artificial version of the world, which then becomes represented as a kind of fundamental fact from which modernity then springs. Many other things spring from the Great Exhibition, such as all of the big museums in London, so all of Albertopolis, so the V&A, the Science Museum, Natural History Museum, are direct kind of antecedents from the Great Exhibition. Exhibits, but also money to build them. So you might say a certain new kind of interior gets invented. Not quite the same as the Crystal Palace, but something to do with art and culture and display. This is a little clip from Brian O'Doherty's Inside the White Cube. Amazing set of essays from mid-70s, I think. And he describes the White Cube Gallery in this way: the repetition of a closed system of values. Some of the sanctity of the church, the formality of the courtroom, the mystique of the experimental laboratory, joins with chic design to produce a unique chamber of aesthetics. So I guess the link I'm trying to make is the, greenhouse in Chatsworth, Great Exhibition, big museums, to an idea of culture, which then gets repeated through as the idea of the gallery evolves. Another kind of idea about the interior. More artificial nature, more environments. So this glass house became a trope, especially amongst the European aristocrats. Here we have Mad King Ludwig in Munich, who enjoyed, you can see him enjoying his boat ride through his private world, which was built on top of the palace in Munich. You can see it. I think there's some kind of demonstration happening. He doesn't really care. He's top left in his greenhouse, where not only is there a boating lake and plants and stuff like that, but there's also paintings of the Matterhorn. So he lives in this kind of scenographic world. And if you know anything about his story, you understand why he likes these kind of lonely, isolated places which are separated from the rest of the world. But many other. Here we are in Paris, another enclosed, artificial, kind of technologically enabled environment. And then it begins to kind of become part of the city. Here we are in the Galleria in Milan, which one might say is a precursor to another kind of interior. Well, this is the second shopping mall designed by Victor Gruen, the Austrian architect, emigrates to the US and pines after medieval Europe and starts to build, or convinces people to build these places where big boxes with stuff inside. Not just shops, but other worlds. You can see his drawings, which feature trees, landscapes, water. What he's doing when he's doing that is he thought he was remaking Vienna's first district. He thought this would be great. It was so, I remember it was amazing. All these little shops, you could walk around, have a coffee, fantastic. He wasn't so pleased when he realized that America was a very different place. He was like, what the hell? What's all this car? What's going on with this car parking? But you can start to see, let's say, this idea of the artificial interior, let's say an exterior contained within something, changes when it hits the US. Maybe it's also present in, projects like this, Mises' famous collage for a convention center. Maybe these are the kinds of spaces which then get part of a critique. So, Archizoom, No Stop City, but they also evolve into other very specialist architectural objects, as Biosphere 2, which was managed by Steve Bannon. Into the popular imagination, science fiction is the kind of conservatory looked after by a little robot in silent running. Or into the technological imagination, NASA illustrations of space stations, where you see like suburban California in these weird geostationary spinning tubes. It comes back, though, that kind of weird tech fantasy. This is Amazon's headquarters in Seattle, inside these glass biomes with people having meetings about whatever people have meetings about in Amazon. Or at Apple, Norman Foster's headquarters, which in a slightly different way contains a natural world through its circular form in this kind of semi-techno-picturesque interior. Maybe the American idea of this contained interior is also present in the famous Bonaventure Hotel, John Portman in downtown Los Angeles, which is a kind of, at its base, a kind of contained world of atria and escalators, et cetera, and famously described in Frederick Jameson's the postmodernism, the logic of late capitalism. So he talks about it being a total space, a complete world, a kind of miniature city. He says it shouldn't even have entrances at all. So he's saying that it has no connection to the city, that it's entirely self-referential. And at this point, the glass has become mirrored, so it's no longer working like a Paxton greenhouse. It's now reflecting, which then produces something very different in its relationship to the city. Banana as foreign object. Well, it is a foreign object. It was true, apparently. Banana skins were a massive problem. In 1879, the popular magazine, Harper's Weekly, criticized people for haphazardly tossing their banana peels on the ground by saying, "Whosoever throws banana skins on the sidewalk does a great unkindness to the public, and is quite likely to be responsible for a broken limb." There were cases like this. This woman kept suing everyone because she kept slipping over on bananas. I think she was, like Slipping Jimmy in Better Call Saul. But it was a phenomenon. Like what would happen with all these new these new objects arriving in the American city? People didn't know what to do with it. Trash collection wasn't very good. They're very dangerous. So the slapstick trope of this odd thing interrupting the normal like operation of the city was in part based on truth. You could say this is in part because the banana is foreign. It is incomprehensible to the Western mind. So this is a little diagram trying to show how the banana fits into like recipes. Like it doesn't. It just takes on some existing recipes. It never develops its own, at least to begin with. And that's very different from the apple, which is central to Western idea of fruit, Western idea of culture. So the banana is the kind of opposite of the apple, you could say. This was the first banana sold in London in 1633, which, yeah, people were surprised by its visual appearance, by its taste, but they couldn't quite make sense of it. Bananas continue to have this kind of odd relationship to culture. This is the banana in Romania. In communist times. So the banana was kind of frowned upon. It was a signifier of an external world. But it did arrive at Christmas, when it would arrive green and be wrapped in newspaper. But its status is maybe different to a Western conception of the banana, like an Eastern European communist idea of the banana. So the banana arrives in these in cultures and has a kind of different purpose, or it has a different meaning. This is when it starts to be recorded in cookbooks. So you see it as fritters. First recipes in America, at least, written down for banana fritters. These are adverts from the United Fruit Company, which we'll see a little bit more of soon, who are trying to tell people, like, what the hell is a banana and what do you do with it? You know, there's some recipes for, like, cold banana soup. I don't know what that exactly is. But, like, what is it and how do you use it? We could have had these cocktails tonight. But also, like, how do you eat it? This is like in the early 20th century. Like, it's good to eat it when it's got brown bits on it. Like, it's information about this new product, which is. But of course, the banana, I mean, maybe it never quite settles. Maybe it always retains a special status, which is why you have the banana split, not the apple split. You know, it's the most ridiculous, most over the top kind of dessert you could possibly imagine. In art, we see it as Gauguin painting in painting. You see giant bananas at the front. This is him in his when he heads off to Tahiti. Or de Chirico, the bananas kind of hanging around as some mysterious thing, like in a sort of dreamlike, surrealist. The hell is this combination? You know, part of the Venus de Milo, distance. You can think of it too in relation to Josephine Baker and her famous banana costume, banana dance. Do you want to see it? So there's clearly many ways of reading Josephine Baker and her performance and the use of the banana as a skirt. We'll just look at a couple of responses to Josephine Baker, one of which is a kind of architectural love letter, Adolf Loos's uncommissioned project for a house for Josephine Baker, which would basically allow him or some unnamed man to watch her swimming, like walk around the staircase, see her body in this, kind of volume of water. Well, here we have Josephine Baker Central and Le Corbusier just next to her on a cruise. 1929. And here they are having a fancy dress dinner with Le Corbusier dressed as a bee. And I don't know what she's dressed as. But it's just Solange Knowles who sort of references clearly. The banana also exists, I guess, in more contemporary forms of art. Maybe many of you know the famous Andy Warhol designed cover for Velvet Underground, Peel Slowly and See. I guess none of us had this copy where you actually could peel the banana off. What's the banana here? The banana is, it's something comic, it's something pop, it's something phallic, it's something strange. Still in the 1960s. Here's the Polish artist Natalia LL eating a banana, something to do, again, with the weirdness of the banana, the suggestiveness, the eroticness, the funniness of the banana. Sarah Lucas doing the same thing. But the banana has a kind of special status. It never quite settles, it seems. It can be, on the one hand, a banana split, the most stupid dessert you could possibly order, but it's also a kind of high-performance superfood for Roger Federer as he takes a break between sets at some championship match. But I don't think we can talk about bananas without mentioning the United Fruit Company. An American company who had a big, let's say, empire based around the banana. This is their docks in New York City. So already a large part of Manhattan's real estate is given over to bananas. This is where all those bananas from the slapstick situations are coming from. They're like tossing them around. Oh my God, I'm walking down Broadway. Oh my God, what banana? Etc. That's where it is now. So it's very, very central, very much part of the financial district now. But of course, was a big network. And it was a big network. You can see it connecting North America to Central America. These technologies of boats, trains. These maps which show all of those routes. These are their boats which are going on, from New York or Boston or New Orleans to Honduras or Guatemala, etc. So an incredibly complex web of connections which are made, which they start to leverage in other ways. This is an advert for connections and how to eat a banana and how wonderful bananas are and how good it is for people, etc., etc. They build gigantic pieces of infrastructure, like rail networks across Central America, whole towns, company towns for everyone who's working on the plantations. That's rail, I think. You can get a glimpse of the sort of scale of the operation from photos like this. And part of that network then becomes a kind of, I suppose, like a kind of pleasure network. The boats which are transporting the bananas become a cruise line. The boats are painted white, so they keep the bananas unripe during transportation. It's called the Great White Fleet. This is a menu. Oh, this is a menu. This is a menu. They use a lot of great propaganda. So they, this is one. This is a kind of about what is bananas and how do you eat them. You see it.
I'm Chiquita Banana, and I've come to say bananas have to ripen in a certain way, and when they're flecked with brown and have a golden hue, bananas taste the best and are the best for you. You can put them in a salad. Grief? No, not yet, my dear. That greenish way you're looking means that you are ripe for cooking.
How about me?
No, no. When you are fully ripe, my dear, those little flecks of brown appear.
Me?
You're most digestible, my friend. Delicious, too, from end to end. You can put them in a pie, any way you want to eat them. It's impossible to beat them. But bananas like the climate of the very, very tropical equator. So you should never put bananas in the refrigerator.
Chiquita is United Fruit Company changed their name to Chiquita to make them sound less associated with bad things. But they also make films like this.
I've spent many years as a newsman traveling in Central and Tropical America, and I think I understand something of what this part of the world means to us. But before we show you some of the reasons why the Kremlin must hate bananas, let's glance at a map of Central America.
That's quite a long film. Both of those commercials or bits of propaganda or whatever you want to call them are made by Edward Bernays, who's the nephew of Freud, the model for Don Draper in Mad Men, who wrote a book like How to Do Propaganda or whatever. So, but the argument here is, I guess, kind of clear that at a certain point, United Fruit owned so much land in Central America that when there was any suggestion that there might be some kind of democratic change in any of those countries which might question that ownership, that would be a bad thing for United Fruit. That United Fruit, bananas, are symbols of freedom, they're symbols of independence, they're symbols of how good capitalism is to people, like all of the workers are having a great time. Those two situations, one, the threat of communism or something which is not unbridled capitalism on the one hand, and I guess, Cold War politics on the other, I think is what's playing out in these two films, which are made in not such a distant time from each other. Of course, that's not unnoted. This is Diego Rivera's illustration or painting here, which shows Eisenhower, John Dulles, and Alan Dulles, who's one of them is the head of the CIA, Alan. The other is the Secretary of State. They're brothers. both on the board of United Fruit, and you can, I guess it doesn't take much to decode what Diego Rivera thinks is going on there. And through United Fruits, a lot of I suppose what you call it, regime change happens. This is some of the evidence which was later made public about the connections between the CIA, United Fruits, and the actual kind of campaign that was fought in Guatemala. This one's even later, much later. This is in, I think, the 2000s. There's ways in which United Fruit or Chiquita were able to funnel money to different kind of armed groups. This time in Colombia. This is like 2007, a trial in 2007. It's kind of nuts to think about that kind of Cold War activity. I suppose you don't have to do that anymore. Americans just goes and does it. Kidnaps the president or whatever. But I suppose the scale of the production is unbelievable. I mean, these are just some images which show that. You can see drones, cleaning, assembly. Another kind of interior that's developed, this gigantic infrastructure of banana processing. Bananas in the hacienda. The scale of shipping. Here we are in Rotterdam. I think this is the existing. I think this exists, right? This is the banana kind of warehouse, so it can keep bananas in without them ripening. It's cooled. This so successful. There's a second one being built, I think, right now, which allows these, the giant displays of bananas in our supermarket. Thank you very much. We got the last ones today from the supermarket down the road. So within these vast networks of banana, production, shipping, and so on, as we have seen, there are many hidden stories. And of course, within these networks, a lot of stuff gets hidden. This is some cocaine that was found amongst banana shipments in the port of Rotterdam. You will be pleased to hear Artificial Nature, Part 5, is the last section of Artificial Nature. This section is called Post-Banana. Up to now, I've just been saying banana, but I'm sure many of you know there was not only one type of banana, but I should explain a little bit about a banana is a cultivar. So that means you can't grow it from seed. They're all it's a bit of the banana plant you grow the next banana from, et cetera, et cetera. So this Chatsworth banana is related to Paxton's banana in Chatsworth, which makes them a kind of monoculture, which makes them very vulnerable to disease. In fact, the Chatsworth banana, the Cavendish banana, has only been kind of the big successful retail banana since the 1950s, maybe 1960s, because the previous cultivar, the Gros Michel, the Big Mike, which had been the banana which had been, United Fruit had been using, developed a disease. And it had no kind of protection against it. There was no diversity in the banana plants, so they all died. I mean, you can still grow them, but you can't grow them at scale. something weird then happened. So, who's got the little banana sweets over that pot? You've got them over there. Okay. I'm going to throw you a banana, right? This is an experiment. Okay. Oh, almost. So, this is the molecule isoamyl acetate, which is the banana flavor. But the banana flavor that we have, the banana flavor of those sweets, of, I suppose, the McDonald's banana milkshake, is based on the extinct banana. Some people say that's why it tastes so weird, because the previous banana, the Big Mike, had a much stronger flavor. It's not because it's cheap, it's just because it's a different banana, which lives on as a kind of, in ghost form, as a kind of candy flavor. Which seems like a nice place to end this draft version of a story about bananas. That the taste of bananas, the artificial taste of bananas, is kind of nothing to do with the banana, the natural banana that we eat, and as much as it could be called natural. I'm going to stop talking now, and maybe you can help me put this story, take it apart, put it back together again in a better way. But thank you very much for indulging me in my miniature banana odyssey.
Okay, thank you so much, Sam. Does anyone want to contribute something? Or any thoughts, questions?
Which were the good bits and which were the bits that should drop? You know the bits which are there because you have to have them? You feel like you have to have them there, and then...
Well, is there so the idea is the banana made, or there's a causal relation between the popularity of the banana and the greenhouse?
Or the other way round.
Or the other
like
way,
the greenhouse produces the banana phenomenon. Like I guess that's it, right? Like the reproduction of tropicality is only possible because of the systemization of the way in which it's...
And is that, do you think, if you kind of wind the film backward, could it also have been another tropical plant? Or are there specific things about the banana that...
I think that there's the kind of the visual quality of the banana itself. It is the kind of, Freud didn't write about bananas, but he wrote about things. He wrote about shapes like bananas. It has a particular color, it has a particular form, it has a particular texture. I think it has a kind of an intrinsic quality which makes it unusual. But I think its relationship to Western culture, I think, gives it this kind of extra, let's say...
Because there's also an awkwardness about it, right? Because
sure.
you need also the fact that you need it to... The brown spots make it look as if it's as if it's rotting, and then it's the time to eat it, which is, of course, goes against
the natural order of things. Yeah.
Is there anyone else who has a thought before. Yeah, yours. Yeah, I know.
That was quite useful. Thank you. Have a banana.
Thank you, Mike.
Great. Congratulations.
Well, did you know that the people in the tropics were quite afraid of going into a banana plantation because the bananas were the natural habitat of tarantulas?
That's
so
great.
the banana spider
Yeah.
nested inside the bananas.
Yeah.
And when the bananas were transported to Europe in ships that were ice cold, the tarantulas died. So they weren't afraid of bananas.
There's still stories of, spiders coming out of supermarket displays, though, aren't there?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Have a banana.
Yeah. Got it!
Anyone else? Yeah, where? Oh, there.
Hi, thank you so much. That was enlightening.
Are you sure?
For sure. I'm really curious because in Spain there's one variety of banana, like the Plátano de Canarias, which I guess can only be grown in Canarias and can only be sold within Spain or something like that. So I'm wondering, how does this relate to the Cavendish banana? And, is there a fight? Is there...
Yeah, well, I guess there's something to do with, like, gigantic agro-business and monopolies, etc., etc. Like, I don't know enough about this, but, you can still get a big mic, for example, but it's not grown. You're setting a trap. Right. So I guess there's so many different kinds of bananas, but there's been two which have been cultivated on such scale. So I think that's probably the issue. Like, it's maybe if you think of any other kinds of fruits or vegetables, you maybe have the same kind of situation where there's like one or two or three kinds of apple which are dominant, but there's hundreds of different kinds of apples which are not produced in the same way. But that is a good line of inquiry. Would you like a banana?
Okay.
When you made the comparison between the banana and the apple, I suddenly had to think about the apple feeling cold because its skin is so little compared to the banana. So I was thinking, like, the banana could be a metaphor for climate change in a way that it's a greenhouse itself because of its thick skin. It's able to contain its heat and warmth, its tropicality, until a moment then it gets shipped into this crazy cooling installation here in Rotterdam, and it stays cool. Why, like creating a North Pole here, and then finally it can then become its tropical version. So in a way,
well, these are more green. Here's this a little bit more green.
yeah.
But I think there must be something interesting about how. I think you must be right. Like, there must be a way you can control the ripening of the banana, especially. All of that technology, but it's very specific technology, as opposed to, I don't know, a peach or a pineapple, which has maybe a different kind of lifespan. So there must be something about the nature of,
it ripens, the skin of a banana ripens other fruit.
Yeah.
When it's not ripe.
That's really weird, right? That's, yeah.
Oranges and avocado.
Yeah. That's excellent.
Anything for a banana.
Okay. Okay, one more, and then we leave this conversation for at the bar.
Well, mine isn't as deep and philosophical as the last one, but I learned something a couple of years ago about the banana. Maybe you know, maybe a lot of people in the audience know, but you can divide the banana in three in the length with just your thumb. Did any?
Yeah. This is the magic trick.
No, but does anyone?
Yeah, okay, stand up. Okay.
Well, this is a banana. It has to be ripe, and then you push your thumb in it.
Oh my God.
This is knowledge you can absolutely do nothing with. But I've been living up to this moment my whole life.
Okay, let's.
I mean, who says you learn nothing at the independent school for the city?
I learned a lot, yeah. And the good thing is also during the drinks, you always have something to talk about.
Right.
Right, yeah. Okay, at this moment, I would like to thank Sam a lot for sharing your thoughts with us. We're now gonna take away the chairs, put on some music, and in 50 minutes there will be a band playing. It's gonna be punk. There's earplugs around if you need them. Yeah, or you can put a banana in. Thank you so much.